Hello, welcome to 8VA Classical Guitar Studios. My name is Derek, and I'm an instructor and a student in Regina, Saskatchewan, and the purpose of my studio is to promote classical guitar for those that otherwise wouldn't have the availability of a quality guitar program or opportunity to study music. Classical guitar is a very accessible instrument in that it doesn't really cost a whole lot of money to get into, say as compared to other instruments like for band instruments and piano. Um, Likewise, it's a very portable instrument, so it can go places where other instruments can't go, particularly into hospitals or seniors' homes very easily. Although seniors' homes usually have a piano available, but the nice thing is it can fit in the back seat or the trunk of a car, and you can take it on vacation, visiting relatives and such. So it's very accessible in that aspect as well. Commuting on the bus or even on the bike if you have straps, for a shoulder case. I've seen people doing that. So it's a very portable, convenient instrument to undertake. Now, with 8VA Classical Guitar Studios, as I mentioned, we want to make learning classical guitar very accessible. There aren't that many teachers out there that teach purely classical guitar. There are several that can show you elements of classical guitar and aspects of it, but not a whole lot that can actually go into the more advanced techniques. But at the moment, we're not interested in that. We just want to start an introduction, get a feel for the music, the instrument itself, some of the techniques, and some of the theory involved with classical guitar, because that's one of the cornerstones of classical music is understanding the theory, how music works, and especially reading notes. And I'll get more into that as well. But the first fundamental of classical guitar is, and we find this with the outreach classes that we teach with the Regina Classical Guitar Society, and with the programs that I teach through 8VA Classical Guitar. A lot of students will show up without a classical guitar, but with a standard guitar. Now, to begin with, what we want to look at is what are the differences between a classical guitar and a steel string guitar. And of course, an electric guitar is just that. It's a wired instrument and not acoustic. So what we mean by acoustic is that it derives the sound from its own structure, whereas an amplified guitar, like an electric guitar, will have a cable that runs to amps, and it'll amplify the sound electronically that way. So first what I'll do is I'd like to show you a standard guitar, and usually they are steel string. So here we have this is a Takamine guitar. This is also an acoustic with a pickup. You can plug in, and you can get classical guitars in the same fashion, where they have microphone sensors that built in that will carry the sound to an amplification system, and they work quite well and very convenient if you're doing more performing and stuff like that in crowds, because a busy audience can easily drown out a classical guitar, and it doesn't take a whole lot of them to do that. So, but this is a general acoustic guitar. They've got steel strings. They have a much different sound, a more metallic sound than a classical guitar. They're also built with harder woods because they have more powerful sound and more tension. There's a tremendous amount of tension that is produced by tightening up the strings to pitch. And they usually have a steel rod in them to help support them, but they can produce a tremendous amount of volume from that structure. And usually people will play them with a pick, and the general amateur or enthusiast of music, they will generally work with singing and playing at the same time, sort of the campfire or just casual jam with their buddies. They'll get together, play a few songs, sing. But yeah, you got that nice tone. So that's a standard acoustic guitar. Now, one thing to take note of is that generally the notes on a standard steel string guitar are the same on a classical guitar. So what you learn in classical guitar you can apply to any other type of guitar, electric guitar or acoustic guitar. The difference is the technique. And of course, with a steel string guitar, there's a lot of finger stylists, and for standard guitar, there's a lot of great teachers in Regina. Jack Semple is one that I could mention. Other famous guitarists not in Regina, like Mark Knopfler, he plays electric and acoustic guitars. He has a very unique style of finger picking. So, and he's got this style where he uses his thumbs and fingers. And Nashville is very famous for Nashville style picking and all sorts of stuff like that. So that is your standard acoustic guitar. Now, if we put that away, set it aside, and I'll bring out a classical guitar. Now, what you'll notice here is that a classical guitar has nylon strings and metal wound strings, but they're actually nylon core. That gives you the ability to get the bass notes that you would on a steel string guitar. Originally, guitars were strung with catgut, actually organic materials. So nylon strings, they're a lot more flexible than on the steel string guitar. Now, one of the most notable differences you'll see here is that the guitar neck is much wider. Now, on the acoustic guitar or a lot of electric guitars, they'll have a more narrow neck, which facilitates strumming easier, but also helps for chord structures for when you're doing chording. You can get your hands closer together, and with minimal movement, you can hit different chords. But with the classical guitar, we have much more intricate demands on our left hand because we're playing multiple melodies at once. And we want to be able to articulate those with our fingers and move our way up the neck in that fashion. So the neck is a little bit wider, gives us more breathing room. And that's one of the differences with classical guitar and standard guitar, is that with the classical guitar, we want more of an open hand. We want a hand that would be able to have better reach and fluidity to be able to get into the positions that we need for the transitions that are demanded and required for the music. Whereas acoustic guitar, the standard steel string guitar, it's a more of a tighter grip. And that's one of the issues that people have when you come from an electric guitar or a standard steel string guitar to classical guitar, is they maintain this desire to have a tight grip and thumb over the top, because the acoustic guitar, the neck is usually a lot thinner, so it's very comfortable to get your thumb over the top, and you can grab extra strings over the top for different chords and that, but not so much in classical guitar. So classical guitar, very notable, nylon strings, and usually if you get in close, you'll see that the bottom strings are even semi-transparent as opposed to steel strings. So that's a big indicator that for a classical guitar if you're looking around. Now, I'm not going to get too much into technique at the moment because there's a lot of great information out there about technique and technical structures. So you can look online, classicalguitartraining.com, and Canadian Classical Guitar, and all sorts of stuff like that, as well as extremely professional lessons through ArtistWorks Online Classical Guitar with Jason Vio. That's who I'm studying with right now, and it's a phenomenal program he's got there. But these are professional people that either are if you look around, you'll find master performers, master teachers, or professional students that are heading their way into the professional realm, to become master players or master teachers or however. But they're breaking ground in classical guitar, and so a lot of these people have the information out there for free that you can capitalize on, as well as other enthusiasts like myself have a lot of YouTube videos that you can watch. Another avenue I would look at is the Del Camp Classical Guitar Forum. It's a great resource for music that you can get for free off just by being a member of the forum, and they're very good quality. And they actually have an educational program there with Jean-Francois Del Camp. So you can register with that, and you get support from numerous very, very renowned classical guitarists that are members there. And they will help you with advice, and usually you send in a video of an exercise that they'll set up for you. But what my goal here is, to begin with my video series, and that is I want to provide an avenue for the absolute beginner to start their journey in classical guitar. And for that, what we're looking at is the fundamentals of the knowledge of the guitar and the theory. Because you can learn a lot of musical information from tabs, from tablature, where they write out, first string, first fret. It doesn't tell you which finger to use, but they'll tell you first fret and fourth fret, and you'll actually you can learn fairly advanced music that way. A lot of people learn like Van Halen solos strictly by and Jimi Hendrix pieces. They'll learn that through tab. So yes, it is a valid resource, but a lot of classical music, especially if you're getting into older volumes, and which are usually one of the better ones, if you can get a nice original forms of classical music, or if you get into the educational system through the Royal Conservatory of Music, there are no tabs. And the way I look at it is, if you buy a book that has both tabs and the standard notation, and you can read music through the standard notation, then you're paying twice as much for one book, because they have to print twice as much. Tab usually takes up a little bit more space, I find. But generally they can print, for one sheet of standard notation, they could generally print one sheet of tab. So you're buying the book twice just to get the tab and the standard notation. So learn how to read music. It's very important. And once you've done that, then basically the world's your limit. As long as you understand the basic fundamentals and you learn your neck theory about where the notes are on that, and they kind of go hand in hand. When you start to understand your being able to sight read music, reading what the notes actually mean, and then transcribing that onto the neck of the guitar, being able to transfer it and being able to play what you see. Now, it's difficult to begin with, and there's a lot of interpretation. You have to translate, I should say. You have to translate what you see and to figure out which fret. And that's where tab makes it easier, because it tells you which fret it's in. But if you learn how to do that through standard notation, and you just take the time and the effort to do it, you don't need the tab at all. So now, like I said, this is for the absolute beginner that's starting up with classical guitar. And one thing I'd like to point out as well is that everybody learns at different rates and through different methods. Like, some people are more visually acute. Other people, they rely more on their hearing. And other people, they want to feel how things work. So different people have different styles. And as well, people learn at different rates. And so one thing that I found is that when I was studying music is that I would get kind of tunnel vision on what I'm focusing on, and there would be obvious things that my teachers would assume that I understood, because it's very simplistic, this concept, or how this relates to that, and they just make the assumption that you understand this. whereas I'm focused on something completely different, and we just never came to a meeting of minds on those. And even when I talk to other guitarists, I'll make a comment about my studies about some aspect of music theory, and they thought, oh, I've never thought of it that way. So what I want to relate for you is these little tricks and insights that I've learned along the way, the hard way, as opposed to those people that just automatically get it. And you see them even when I went to school with electronics and that. There was people I was in class with that they go over something once and they just knew it, and it was easy. They can make the relations with the math and the theory, and they just run with it. Whereas for myself, I'd be having to meticulously work through every stage. Once I got it, but I had to do the grunt work for that. So what I want to do is I want to point out some of these fundamentals that I've learned, and some tricks and shortcuts and some insights as to how to work through the theory to make it a little bit easier. But anything that's worthwhile doing takes work. It takes effort, and it takes commitment, and music is a passion. And if you've got that passion, I want to help you develop it and progress with classical guitar. Thank you.